Hello and welcome to a live edition of the Cyclone Insider podcast and live stream. I'm Travis Hines. He's Randy Peterson coming to you on this Thursday afternoon of Cy-Hawk Week. Iowa and Iowa State both 1-0 heading into Saturday's game at Jack Trice Stadium, 2:30 p.m. The Fox channel. Randy, are you sick of Cy-Hawk Week yet, or are you still enjoying the 48 hours left to go before kickoff?
I'll do my best to enjoy the 48 hours before kickoff. As of now, at least the way I plan it, I think I'm pretty much done writing. So I said as of now, in case there's any stuff that pops up, which has been known to happen. Yeah, I guess I'm I'm ready to roll. It's this week's always a long week, but it's a good week, and it's a significant week, and we might get into that later on in the show about what it means. But I'm ready to rock and roll. I see you're ready to go too. I think I got longer hair than you now. What the heck?
Yeah, in my every other month haircut or so. Let's jump right in to talking about the quarterback. Matt Campbell wouldn't rule out playing two quarterbacks after playing both Rocco Becht and J.J. Cole on Saturday against UNI. Offensive coordinator Nate Scheelhaase, seemed to say he anticipated both. Do you believe them? Because I don't know that I do.
No, not necessarily. I don't think. We both know there's not going to be scripted plays for the quarterbacks. I think you asked that question a couple of weeks ago, and Campbell or Scheelhaase or somebody said absolutely not. I don't think it's going to be scripted to the fact that Rocco starts and on the third possession, J.J. Cole plays. I think when Rocco starts, I said when, because he will. When Rocco starts, if Rocco's successful, if Iowa State's moving the ball, if Iowa State is offense is clicking to the extent that it can click against the best defense it'll face this year, then he's not coming out. There's no way he's coming out. Now, if it gets to be 12 minutes and 46 seconds into the fourth, or with 12 minutes and 46 seconds to go in the game, and stuff's still not going good for Iowa State, then he might switch. We saw him do that in 2021 with the best statistical quarterback that ever played at Iowa State. We saw him take Brock Purdy out in a 17-point game with about 13 minutes to go against Iowa. So I know that's in Campbell's DNA, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a terribly lot of things to happen for J.J. Cole to get into the game when the game actually is still when the outcome is still actually on the line, I think.
Yeah, obviously neither quarterback lit the world on fire on Saturday against UNI, but I thought it was pretty clear that Rocco Becht, who has, limited but still some game experience, looked much more comfortable, much more at ease playing the position than J.J. Cole, who was stepping out on Jack Trice Stadium field for the first time. And it'll be interesting to see, what the evaluation was like from the coaching staff, to where do you take much of an evaluation off of that? Or is it the kid was out there for the first time, he's going to be better the second time, let's just continue this quarterback competition into week 2? Or do they look at it and say, Rocco was the better player, he's got to lose the job for JJ to get another shot? And I think the answer is probably somewhere in between. I think my anticipation would be Iowa State plans on rolling with Rocco Becht in this game. But to your point, I don't think the leash is incredibly long. If they go out there 3 and out, interception, 3 and out, if they struggle to get the plays in time, then I think maybe you could see a change. But I think when it comes to J.J. Cole, they're going to want to put him in positions to succeed. And, throwing him in after a so-so or nondescript debut, throwing him in the Cy-Hawk game against a really good defense is probably a pretty tough position to go in, especially when, Becht was serviceable. Like he looked like a Big 12 quarterback, and that's not a slight to say that's where the ceiling is. It's just when you run pretty bland offense against an FCS team, it's hard to get too excited or, even go the other way to get too pessimistic about like JJ Cole, who was 4 or 5 for 3 yards or something like that. So it's just hard to draw much from it other than a comfort level that I think Rocco Becht clearly was much further ahead, as you would imagine, than JJ Cole.
Yeah, and that comfort level included being comfortable in the pocket, and Iowa State's offensive line allowed him to do that. Now, will Rocco be as comfortable in the pocket against Iowa? I don't know. I mean, Iowa's going to bring it. I mean, pretty much guaranteed that, or at least they'll be in the backfield, and they'll try to make Rocco feel uncomfortable, just like good defenses do against every quarterback. They want to get him off his game sometime, whether it's physically or mentally, and that's going to be something that Iowa is going to try to do, and that's why one of the reasons, at least throwing last week to the tight ends so many times. Tight ends had half of Iowa State's caught half of Iowa State's 14 passes last week. So the tight ends got confidence. They got confidence in that game against Northern Iowa by being used so much. And it's obvious that Rocco has confidence in them. But there were times I asked Rocco about this Tuesday. I asked him if that was in the cards to throw to the tight ends, and that was that the game plan. And he said, not always, not necessarily. He said they were open. And so I don't know whether that means if Rocco's giving up on the pocket too soon, if Rocco's giving up on Jalen Knoll or Higgins or Dimitri Stanley or any of the receivers. I don't know whether he's giving up on them too soon, but certainly he saw the tight ends open and he hit them, which may end up being a good thing against Iowa, because I'm not certain you're going to have all day to pass like he did against Northern Iowa. I think it's going to be one of those things where if Iowa State moves the ball, if they're fortunate enough to move the ball against the Hawks, it's going to be just the chunk plays, the short yardage plays that move the chains, very similar to what we saw in the 99-yard drive. I'm certainly not predicting another 99-yard drive. That was a generational drive. And that was, I still shake my head about that. I still find it incredible. But so I think that Iowa State's going to make – Rocco's certainly not going to be as comfortable in the pocket on Saturday as he was in the opener. And also in watching the replay, Rocco looked like a sitting duck sometimes too when he was running. He's got to learn how to slide. Which I guess comes with all quarterbacks. I remember Brock Purdy when he first started. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, certainly going to be a test unlike any other that Rocco Becht or JJ Cole have faced in their career up until this point, which then leads us, Randy, to our next discussion topic. In the non-quarterback division, when you look at both sides of the ball for Iowa State in this game against Iowa, who is going to be the difference maker between a win and a loss for you? Is there one guy? I mean, I think it'd be easy to point at a couple different position groups. Probably offensive line would be the one that would jump out. But in terms of a singular player, who jumps out to you as potentially somebody that can swing this game?
A singular player. I wish I could say special teams. Okay, a singular player. We've seen what Jeremiah Cooper can do with 2 interceptions, cornerback who had a 58-yard pick six against Northern Iowa and then had another one later in the game. I'm guessing that Iowa's going to be very cognizant of him, which may open up some of the other defensive backs. I'm going to say TJ Tampa. I'm going to say TJ Tampa because if in fact Cade McNamara is as less than 100% mobile, as we've been hearing out of Iowa City, then it sounds to me like he's not going to be doing a whole lot of stuff outside the pocket, which to me means he's either going to be throwing the ball down the field or to the tight ends, or he's going to be handing it off. Regardless what he's doing in that respect, the secondary is going to have to be on their toes, because I don't know whether Iowa State's front, whatever it would be, front seven, I don't know whether they can fully 100% stop Iowa's rushing game, which means the secondary, which mean guys like TJ Tampa. So I'm going to say TJ Tampa, just not only about breaking up passes and maybe intercepting one, but I'm saying also in the run game.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the other side of the ball. I think TJ is a good pick, but I'm going to go on the other side of the ball. And, you mentioned that 99-yard drive a year ago from Iowa State. My thought after watching that Iowa State team on Saturday, not have a drive longer than I think 7 plays. Yeah. Like, Randy, how about this? The longest Iowa State drive in terms of number of plays and in terms of time of possession was the 21-yarder that they used to score after Jalen Knoll's big kick return in the first quarter. That was their most plays in a drive, to go 21 yards, and longest time of possession in a drive all game long. So
that's how good the defense is. Yes.
Well, so again, without extrapolating too much against an FCS opponent, when Iowa State was obviously trying to keep the playbook pretty thin, I wonder about Iowa State's ability, based on that first game and the inexperience at a number of key positions, to sustain long drives against a really good Iowa defense. So if Iowa State is going to have success offensively under this theory, it might need explosive plays. It might need the big plays. It might need the big home run plays. And I think the guy that we saw flash the potential of that on Saturday against UNI was Abu Sama. Had a couple of really electric runs. He's obviously incredibly fast. And to hear Campbell talk about it, I think both Saturday and Tuesday, about how a couple of small alterations to those runs, and you're looking at, maybe hitting pay dirt on a major long run. Going from week 1 to week 2 from a freshman, it'll be interesting to see in how Iowa game plans. But when I look at that offense, he might be the guy with the home run ability that we haven't seen at Iowa State otherwise this year.
I was going to say, go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it.
I think Jalen Knoll has shown it. Maybe even Demetrius Stanley has shown it at times in his career. I think, a guy that will be interesting going forward will be tight end Ben Brammer. But I think what we saw on Saturday, and the way we know this Iowa State offense wants to operate, run first with a dynamic running back, can Abu Sama, the Southeast Polk Ram, can he bust one? Can he bust 2? And now you're talking about a very different football game for the Iowa State offense, with some quick score ability. Obviously, that's easier said than done by about a factor of 1,000,000. But I do think if there is a guy that can change the game for Iowa State offensively on a single snap, Sama would be my pick about the guy who could be that person.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at one of the comments that we're getting. One of his former teammates, Wampa, is going to be playing on the other side of the ball for Iowa. But
as our Altoona correspondent, pretty disappointing you didn't write about that already.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I missed that one. Sama's going to play. He's going to play a lot, because more than he did last week. Because Campbell said after Saturday's game, or he said Tuesday, whenever, that Eli Sanders was hurt. So, and then I've since heard that he's not been practicing. So I'm assuming he's not playing this week, which is too bad, because he was hurt. He was banged up last year, as the whole running back room was banged up last year. So for Iowa State, I hope this isn't a sign of bad things to come in the running back room. But yeah, you're right. You're right about Sama. He is. He's got that explosiveness that we've not seen. And I'm not comparing him to Brees. Do not get me wrong, but he's got this hasn't been that much of a sample size either. But certainly nobody since Brees has had that kind of breakout, and that's just all of one season. But nonetheless, if he can somehow find a crease, just wiggle open a little bit, I'd be curious. I'd really want to see what he can do with the ball, because Iowa State, if game one is to be believed, even if Iowa State's offense does bog down after, if they get the ball down fairly deep in Iowa's territory, I feel more confident this year after seeing Chase Contreras just once. I still feel more confident in him making a field goal. So yeah, I agree with that's a good pick. Is Abu, kind of a surprise pick, but it's interesting that that you share that same feeling on him that I certainly do. He's going to be good, and his backstory is incredible, and he's got a wonderful future right now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they got to put it together, but obviously when you look at the history that Campbell has with running backs, going back to Toledo with NFL running back after NFL running back, and when you see a spark like Cartavius Norton had against SEMO a year ago, like Abu Sama did against Northern Iowa last week, makes your eyebrow raise up. What did they see in their evaluation of this guy that is now showing itself, in a very, nascent stage that could lead one of these guys to be that next guy. I mean, I think you got to be feeling pretty excited about that running back room if you're an Iowa State fan, and confident about it if you're Matt Campbell, because it does seem like, again, they got to sustain it, cultivate it, and be consistent with it over the course of, a game, a season, and a career. But, certainly the electricity was there to get your attention and make you wonder what the future is going to hold for Sama. And I still think that about Cartavius Norton too, after what we saw last year and him never being healthy. But Randy, you brought up special teams. Let's talk a little special teams. They were pretty good Saturday against UNI. Are we believers in the Jordan Lang's special teams coordinator renaissance at Iowa State? Is it too early to tell? Is there somewhere in between about this suddenly becoming like Virginia Tech under Frank Beamer, that special teams is going to rule the day?
I think it's too early to tell, but certainly after game one, yeah, I don't think other than that faulty snap, whatever that thing was, on a PAT, maybe, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was a high snap that probably could have salvaged, but wasn't quite able to.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, it was the special teams had a wonderful day. And granted, they didn't have a high bar to meet in that respect. But with Jalen Noel getting whatever he got, 60 yards worth of returns, Iowa State only had 87 yards punt returns last year as a team. So that's encouraging. And I don't remember Northern Iowa breaking off any good sized significant returns. So, and against Iowa last year, I remember there were a couple block punts, I believe it was.
Just two block punts.
Just two, yeah. Just they were only two, but still they were important. And Iowa State held up pretty good there. So, I think after week one, Iowa State fans have to be impressed. And I just noticed a piece of this streaming of this YouTube what we're using. People can ask questions, and we're getting questions. I just noticed that.
Look at Randy getting dialed into the tech.
Yeah, I am. Oh my gosh. Now we're getting all kinds of questions. Anyway, there are people watching. So somebody asked about Cartavius and Abu, and I think we answered that one. Okay, here's one. I know we're getting off script here, but that's okay, dude. We got to take care of our people. Somebody, Mark wants to know if something about the punts. It says Iowa won't be drilling long, low punts. So there'll be less opportunities to make returns, which I get that. Torrey Taylor is the best punter on the planet, and I don't care what division what level you're talking about. So yeah, that's true. We may not see punt returns. Then again, we may see Torrey Taylor bomb one so far that he outkicks his coverage, and we've all seen what's going to happen. What can happen there in those situations. So, that's going back to the special teams now. I think that special teams are going to be huge, and on the other side as well. Iowa Iowa's pretty good field goal kicking team. Obviously, they've got the punter, and I'm sure they've got return guys also. So that could be a big factor in holding on the ball in those returns. Also, we've seen that come up and beat and bite Iowa State in the butt. Also, just running into themselves on kick returns. On fielding of punts or kickoffs, mostly punts. So we didn't see any of that in game one. So in answer to your question, Trav, I think we can take something away from game one with Jordan Langs's being the Campbell finally naming a full-time special teams coach. Sorry, I rambled, but I got off topic. I started reading the comments. The questions.
Randy went on a little detour there, discovering the technology. But I think there were no punt return collisions, so that's a step in the right direction.
That's a different way to put it.
We asked Campbell about special teams after the game, and for whatever reason, he's decided that's something that he's going to be defensive about. But I do think he raised a fair point in that when they've had good specialists, that's made a big difference in stabilizing special teams. It has not fixed all what ails them, and that is not the lone issue with their special teams. Certainly, just go back and look at return game, your kickoff coverage, and things like that. But I do think he's right in that when their specialists are good, that helps to raise the bar. And what we saw from Tyler Perkins on Saturday against UNI looked like a totally different dude punting the ball. For Iowa State, we saw Chase Contreras hit a 56-yarder, at the end of the half. Those to have players in position that can make those types of plays, I think is big for Iowa State. Now they still have to go out and make sure that they continue to be clean and efficient elsewhere in special teams, but to have a couple of guys that after week one, again, who knows where this goes from here. But after week one, that looked like competent and maybe even elevated specialists at those positions can make a huge difference, certainly in a low possession game that we are anticipating this game on Saturday to be. Randy, I think now it's time. I feel like sometimes we drive in a point too much, or we stick on a topic too much, we as an industry, and the will the Cyhawk game go away, I think is a lot of times one of them. But I think there's two reasons for that. One is if you're not constantly talking about it, I do think that allows for complacency to set in. And I think when you talk to people around this game and when you talk to people around the sport, this rivalry and keeping it is important. But I also think at this point, it's really important to talk about in terms of realignment. The further you look out with the way realignment is going, the harder it is to see this game surviving another round of realignment and maybe even this round of realignment, depending on what the Big Ten, Big 12, and maybe other conferences do in terms of conference games now that we're swelling back to 16 teams and 18 teams or 2 in the case of Pac-12. But I do think there is a real threat here about this game continuing in its current form with the way that realignment is going to put pressure on schedules.
Right, and that'd be really unfortunate. But you're right, it could happen. We don't know, and Campbell referenced this a little bit on Tuesday. We don't know once all this current round settles, we don't know how many conference games that everybody's going to be playing. I mean, right now, Iowa State or the Big 12 plays 9 conference games. There's 9 conference games during a 12-game regular season. Now, if they played 10, if they raise that to 10, or Campbell even mentioned 11, which I don't see happening, but possibly, who knows? If they, let's say they raise it to 10, and obviously victories to get to the postseason are very important. So you raise it to 10, Iowa State and Iowa would be playing 10, would be playing 11 Power 5 games opponents, if in fact they keep the Cyhawk game. I don't know whether they're going to want to do that. I don't know, because they're going to want to go out and schedule lower opponents. And what's this do for Northern Iowa if in fact Cyhawk goes away? That could be tough too. So it's all going to be about the scheduling. And we'll see how many conference games these mega conferences end up playing, or maybe they just end up playing everybody within their own conference or division or whatever it is they call it, and just have an overall record. And with the college football playoffs expanding to 12 eventually coming up very soon, the whole college football landscape is changing. But I certainly hope that somehow there's a place for this game. There's going to be, I would say 40,000, 25 to 40,000 people tailgating who aren't even going to have tickets to go into the game. They just go up there to be part of it. And I'm not counting the politicians. They're just going to be up there to be part of it. And that always happens, whether it's in Ames or whether it's in Iowa City. What's this game mean for the communities? This game means a lot for both communities. But I don't know how much that's going to be important to people who make schedules down the road, because college football and college sports in general has turned into more of a big buck business than ever before. So I fear for this game, but I certainly hope there's a place for it.
Yeah, I think the threats to the game are multiple, and I think the immediate term would be the leagues going and adding another conference game, and Iowa and Iowa State looking at it and saying we can't make it work with playing another Power 5 opponent. And I think they can make the gate work in terms of home and away, because I think historically the two schools, for whatever the rivalry is, have worked well together to schedule things out and make things work. I mean, just look back to the game getting canceled in 2020. It seemed like, at least from the outside looking in, that there was pretty amicable and not trying to rewrite the contract to get Iowa its home game back. They just kept the contract moving forward to make it work, because the schedules had been laid out in advance to get the appropriate amount of home games to fit their budgets. But I think the bigger issue will be in terms of the decision will probably come down to a television executive. Well, it's not going to come down
good point.
to to Iowa or Iowa State. And I say that in that the ESPN, Fox, and whoever else is involved here are paying the money that they're paying for college football right now, not for Iowa and Utah State and Iowa and Iowa State. They're paying for the big brand games. And whatever jokes you want to make about an Iowa State game being between big brand games, it's two Power 5 teams playing in a hotly contested rivalry in always sold out stadiums with great atmospheres. That makes for great TV. Like we were talking about this the other day, or maybe I was talking about it with our colleague Chad Leistico on his podcast, but there's a reason that Iowa State has hosted game day 2 times in their history, and they're both this game, because this game is exciting and it does draw in viewership when both teams are good, because of the rivalry and because of the tradition and the atmosphere, and on and on. So I'm not saying that, but where the issue will be is TV is going to want them to load up on conference games. And when you load up on conference games, like I was talking about earlier, that's going to make non-conference scheduling trickier. And I think ultimately why I would be so concerned about this game going away is the next round of realignment. Is it going to be wholesale in that the Big Ten and SEC break away, or there is a complete restructuring of conferences to where this looks more like NFL light with 30 teams or maybe 60 teams or whatever it is. And in that scenario, in 30-team scenario or 35-team scenario, is Iowa State included in that? In a 60-team scenario, are you does it look like the NFL where you don't necessarily play every team every year? I just think that's the way this is headed, where you're not playing football team versus football team, rivalry versus rivalry. It's brand A versus brand B. And when you're signing multiple billion-dollar contracts, which I imagine the next one will be, you're kind of held hostage by the TV executives and what they want. They give you the money, and then you got to pretty much do what they say. We've seen this. I always joke in the NCAA tournament where people are constantly like, why are they doing these in-game coaching interviews that never happened during the regular season? And people lose their mind about it. And the answer is because TV wants it. And TV's paying $1 billion a year or CBS is paying $1 billion a year to air the tournament. You do what they say when they're giving you $1 billion. And ultimately that's what's going to happen in my mind with conference realignment. And my concern with the next go round here, does Iowa and Iowa State separate in terms of where they're playing, or is the entire configuration built not with rivalries in mind, and the Iowa State game will have to take a back seat to whatever that structure looks like?
Chew on this one for a second, Trev. What if, you're talking about the TV contracts, which is 100% spot on. You're absolutely right. So let's just say when these contracts become worth billions of dollars to college football, do college players then finally form up and start to unite in being unified in trying to be paid by the colleges to play?
I mean,
because they're going to want more of it. They're going to want a piece of this pie too. And so far, one of the things that stop that are, number one, laws, I think. But number two is they haven't been able to exactly get on the same page. So would this open up that door again? Heaven forbid.
No, I think what's going to open that door up is going to be the Supreme Court. I mean, I think that's coming, Randy. I just don't think this is going to be the catalyst. I think will be, I would imagine, and I'm guessing, I'm not reporting anything, that there will be some form of revenue sharing before the next round of realignment. If the PR hit would be pretty terrible, and it's already pretty terrible, if you do the next round of realignment, and I imagine the next round, and so we're talking in 5+ years, my suspicion would be the next round of realignment isn't so much about conferences adding teams, but about them expelling teams and reconfiguring around the biggest brands in the sport rather than traditional rivalries. I'm absolutely not the first person to make this observation or to have this thought, but at what point does Ohio State say, why are we paying for Rutgers' athletic department? When Alabama says, what is Vanderbilt bringing to the table here? And on down the line, sorry to point out those schools, but I do think that'll ultimately be what happens here. And if you're going to get there, and I think given what we read in Justice Kavanaugh's concurring opinion a couple of years ago in the Alston case, that when somebody brings our student athletes employees case to the Supreme Court, the NCAA is not, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an attorney, is not going to fare well in that case. And you're probably looking, we just saw Jim Harbaugh 2 weeks ago, saying that there needs to be revenue sharing. I think we're headed down that path. How fast we'll get there, I don't know, but I think it'll likely happen before, we get ever to whatever, the Super League that appears we're headed towards. And there will be externalities of that. And maybe the Iowa State game is one of those, but I think ultimately recognizing college sports for what it is, which is professional football, a step below the NFL.
With free agency.
Yeah, is probably a good thing in getting the people that make the game, the players, cut in on the profits to that. I think makes a lot of sense in given that we're a capitalist society here. But we're way down the rabbit hole.
I know we are.
It's Cyhawk week, Randy. You got a prediction for the game? You want to lay your pride out on the line here?
What pride? 17, what am I saying? 17-14, 17-13 in that area.
Will either team win, or just that'll be the final score? Who the hell knows which team?
It's online right now. It's online right now with the weekly Big 12 picks. I picked Iowa to win. I picked Iowa to win last year too. So I mean, that's no big deal. What about you, sir?
I think Iowa's probably 3 points better, and I think when you're talking about 3 points better in a rivalry game, it's a coin flip, and I think that's probably what this is. And again, to me, as somebody who likes to just try to learn about the team each week, understand them better, that's what I'm excited about for this game for Iowa State. We're going to learn a lot about that youth. I think we're going to learn a lot about that offense to one degree or another on Saturday. And I think that'll be, from my perspective, interesting. But certainly, whatever team comes away 2-0 from this game is going to be feeling pretty good about themselves. And again, like Iowa and Iowa State are going into this game and the season with different expectations. But just like last year, Randy, where Iowa State was 3-0, I mean, in the non-conference, if you win on Saturday, if you're Iowa State, that puts 3-0 in the non-conference on the table, and you're halfway to a bowl game. Now, obviously, that wasn't enough last year for a team that went 1-8 in the Big 12, but that's a hell of a head start. Even last year, they weren't able to complete the journey, but getting to 3 wins before the calendar says October, that is quite the head start, and it absolutely puts a bowl game on the table. Where you lose on Saturday if you're Iowa State, now you got to jump on a plane and go to Athens, Ohio, and play a road game coming off a letdown. That's not a great situation to be in. So I'm going to break some news here, Randy, and I'm going to say for Iowa State, winning would be a lot better than losing on Saturday.
I thought you were really going to break news.
Yeah,
whoa.
That's
what are you keeping from me?
Yeah, but So once we get to this level of analysis, it's probably best to call it a show. He's Randy Peterson. I'm Travis Hines. This has been the Cyclone Insider podcast and live stream from the Des Moines Register. Be sure to check out DesMoinesRegister.com the rest of the week and certainly all weekend long for all the Cy-Hawk content your heart could desire, both from Randy Peterson and I and our colleagues in Iowa City. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.